Imagine, for a moment, the sound of 8,000 iron forges hammering in unison beneath a Saharan sunrise, while somewhere farther south the air itself trembles with the bass rumble of 30,000 marching feet. Yet today these names are spoken only in whispers. How could entire worlds, richer than legend, simply vanish from memory? Tonight, on History Off the Map, we follow 7 such vanished sons, kingdoms whose merchants weighed gold with the same care we give to life-saving medicine, whose architects stacked stone into skylines that mocked the clouds, whose kings once decided the fate of continents before any European map called them undiscovered. Keep listening, because by the final minute, a single unanswered question will still be scratching at the door of your thoughts. What else have we forgotten? We begin beside the Nile, but farther south than the pyramids tourists photograph. Here, between the first and sixth cataracts, the kingdom of Kush rose around 1070 BCE, shaking off Egyptian rule like a lion shedding rain. In the red dust outside Kerma and later Meroe, over 200 pyramids still glint smaller than Giza's, steeper, unmistakably African. Archaeologist Timothy Kendall, in the PBS documentary Nubia, The Forgotten Kingdom, walks among them and notes that the Kushite kings Pa and Shabaka once marched north, crowned themselves pharaohs, and for nearly a century the 25th dynasty of Egypt itself was black and Nubian. Picture the Kushite court, leopard skins across bronze shoulders, incense curling like question marks, scribes keeping records in both Egyptian hieroglyphs and the flowing Meroitic script that scholars still struggle to decipher. Their caravans carried gold so pure it was said to sweat in the sun and iron blades that cut through Roman shields. Yet by 350 CE, when the camel-mounted armies of Aksum thundered across the Atbara River, Kush fractured, its last kings retreating into the desert where even memory loses footprints. From the Nile we pivot eastward to the Horn, where the kingdom of Aksum ruled the Red Sea like a private harbor. Around 100 CE, under King Zoskales, the port of Adulis smelled of frankincense, Indian peppercorns, and the sweat of Greek sailors who anchored beside Sabaean merchants. The Aksumites minted gold coins bearing their king's faceone of the few African states to do so, and erected obelisks taller than 10-story buildings, carved as single blocks of granite. In 330 CE, King Ezana stood beneath such a stay, listening to a shipwrecked Syrian youth named Frumentius preach the new faith of Christianity. Chronicles say Ezana pressed the tip of his spear into the earth, declared, "Let this be my baptismal font," and Aksum became the first kingdom south of the Sahara to embrace the cross. Trade routes shifted after the 7th century rise of Arab caliphates. The sea that once carried Aksum's ivory now carried others' flags, and the kingdom dwindled. Yet its liturgical Ge'ez language still murmurs inside Ethiopian churches every Sunday at dawn. Now the wind swings west, across the Sahel, where by 830 CE, the Ghana Empire known to its own people as Ouagadougou held the keys to the Sahara. In the market city of Kumbi Saleh, a traveler could hear Soninke griots praise the Magan king, while salt slabs the size of gravestones changed hands for equal weights of gold. Al-Bakri, the 11th century Andalusian geographer, wrote of the king's court, "He sits in a domed pavilion, his warriors carrying shields of gold, their swords likewise." Ghana's secret was not mines, but control taxing every ounce that moved north by camel and every kola nut that moved south by canoe. Drought and Almoravid raids gnawed at the empire's edges, and by 1235, the Lion King Sundiata Keita absorbed its bones into a newer, fiercer realm, Mali. Under Mali, the very word gold seemed to glow brighter. In 1324, Mansa Musa, lord of 400 cities, set out for Mecca with 60 porters and a caravan so opulent that when he paused in Cairo, he spent until the dinar lost 1/10 of its value for a decade. Imagine the Sultan of Cairo watching from his balcony as camels laden with ingots passed beneath a crimson canopy embroidered with verses from the Quran. Back home, Timbuktu became the Oxford of Africa. Sankore University's libraries held an estimated 700 manuscripts on astronomy, law, and medicine. Their margins illuminated with lapis lazuli ground, so fine it floated like smoke. Leo Africanus, visiting in the early 1500s, wrote that more profit is made from selling books than any other merchandise. Yet the empire's arteries were its rivers of trade. And when Portuguese ships began skirting the coast, redirecting gold away from the desert, Mali's heart slowed. By 1600, the empire had fractured into kinglets squabbling over scraps. From Mali's ashes rose Songhai, largest of them all. Stretching from today's Senegal to Niger, it dwarfed Western Europe. At its height, under Askia Muhammad I, in the early 1500s, the empire ran on a bureaucracy so precise that provincial governors sent weekly pigeon post reports to Gao. Timbuktu, now Songhai's jewel, hosted mathematicians who could calculate eclipses to the hour, and the jurist Ahmed Baba owned, it was said, 600 books when he was exiled to Morocco in 1593. He mourned the loss of his library more than his palace. But the world had changed. Moroccan forces crossed 500 miles of desert in 1591, armed with Dutch-supplied muskets. At Tondibi, the Songhai cavalry lances glinting, drums thundering charged into the teeth of gunpowder. Sand, soaked with blood, turned to mud. The empire that had measured its wealth in gold dust was weighed instead in bullets. Far to the south, where the Zambezi bends, the kingdom of Great Zimbabwe flourished between 1100 and 1450 CE. Its capital, Zimbabwe, houses of stone, still astounds. The great enclosure's walls rise 35 feet without mortar, fitted so tightly that a razor blade cannot slide between granite blocks. Inside, the air is heavy with the memory of ivory and the musk of cattle whose wealth was counted not in coins but in beasts. Swahili merchants from Kilwa sailed 600 miles upriver to trade glass beads for Zimbabwe's gold. Fragments of Persian pottery found on the site testify to a cosmopolitanism that predated Columbus by centuries. When the rains failed and the trade winds shifted, the city emptied, leaving only the haunting call of fish eagles circling over silent towers. Last, we arrive at Benin in the Nigerian rainforest. Its walls, longer than the Great Wall of China, circling a city so advanced that in 1691 a Dutch visitor wrote, "The streets appear to be 6 times broader than in Amsterdam, and kept so clean, one could walk in silk slippers." The Oba's palace gleamed with bronze plaques depicting courtiers, leopards, and Portuguese soldiers wearing helmets like inverted tulips. Craftsmen cast these bronzes using the lost wax technique at temperatures that turned night into orange noon, the molten metal singing as it filled the mold. Yet the very trade that enriched Benin first in pepper, then in human beings gnawed at its soul. By 1897, when British troops looted the city after a punitive expedition, the bronzes were carted off to London, and the Oba's throne sat empty beneath a ceiling of bullet holes. 7 kingdoms: Kush, Aksum, Ghana, Mali, Songhai, Great Zimbabwe, Beninique, once the center of its own universe, now footnotes in someone else's atlas. But listen closely. Beneath the static of modern borders, drums still pulse in the Sahel. Incense still rises in Aksum's churches, and somewhere a griot plucks a single string remembering Ouagadougou. History does not die. It merely waits for new storytellers. And here is the question we leave unresolved. If these 7 could vanish so thoroughly, what other kingdoms, perhaps even granderly beneath the sands of the Sahara, or the red earth of the Congo, or the muddy delta of the Niger, still whispering but not yet heard? Drop your theories in the comments, and if you want to join the expedition to uncover them, tap subscribe. History is never truly off the map, it's just waiting for us to redraw the lines.